So usually what happens to me is I start these things as like fun ideas that are just going to keep it lo-fi, not intense, not structured. But then I slowly try to add structure until the point where I'm like, shoot, all this
Too
structure
much
feels
structure.
overwhelming. I need to stop everything and then burn it all down. And yeah. So
Right.
my gut wants to like add structure, a show name, intro music, a landing screen, you know. But
Nah.
then as I'm sitting there eating lunch quickly before this, I'm like, shoot, I don't have time to do all those things. So why bother?
We don't need any of those things.
Yes. So Tim got some new gear. That's what we're gonna help him with. I don't have
I
the.
did, and it's really just like I had the. Well, first of all, I was using the built-in Mac webcams, which are 1080p and not great, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure this is better, but at least the resolution is better. I'm using the DJI Action Cam 3 as my webcam right now, and it looks pretty good.
I think. Well, I guess you
I
could.
also have,
You could almost.
yeah.
Can you do this the before after? You could like.
Oh yeah, I could
That might
actually.
actually. I mean, it might destroy everything and the whole thing blows up. But let's see what
I
happens.
think once I've committed within this
Oh, within
system, I
Riverside
don't think I can change it.
or Ecamm.
Like in the column.show, I made my decision and I made my choice, and I'm moving it.
So we'll do it before
I
and
don't see where
after.
the
Someone can watch the other YouTube video. I'll publish these on
yeah.
YouTube and can do it before and after. I'd say it looks better.
There you
Definitely,
go.
like the room looks clear, even though you've got like a white or a bright background, bright window behind you.
Right,
It still is
right. It doesn't. I
compensating.
don't think it's blowing out as much as it was before.
No, and even when you stepped
Um,
away and more window, it did a nice little
it
adjustment
did
for
okay,
like the
right.
room. So
And I do have. I just turned off a yellow light, and I do have a white light bouncing off the wall. I'm not sure it's sufficient, but that's okay.
let's go
It
full
looks
Tim
fine.
for a second here so people can see
Mhm.
full Tim.
Oh well, show them all my moving boxes. Thank you, Chris.
I just want to. I don't have a pointer. I wish I had a point. There's probably a way I can do this pointer, but
We moved in recently, and it was a month ago, which I know seems like a long time, but I got sick twice, and my partner got sick, and we've been going back and forth to help with elderly relatives, and this is the best we can do right now.
it's a it's an unstructured, unpolished show, so it makes sense that I mean
Yeah,
people
exactly.
can't
The best
see
part of the room, honestly, is what I'm looking at. So I'm sorry that you
as it
can't
should
see.
be. Other
Yeah,
than you told me the boxes there's like three or four. I'm just going to assume every Amazon box to your left screen or your right screen left, I guess, is
yeah.
booze, right? So,
Well, this is all booze right here. Yeah,
well, that's if we
wine
get
and
to
booze
what's
on the
the
bar cart. Notice,
oh
which
sorry
is
I
not,
switched away.
fully assembled yet, or fully. Obviously, the booze is still in boxes, and then everything back here is like art that we can't hang until everything else is settled. And then
Yeah.
over here on these bookshelves, mirrored, these bookshelves, it's just all my junk that I need to find
So
storage for.
that's your left, right? Correct?
That is my left.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
So we're yes, yeah. He's got great sunlight. It's a great room.
good sunlight,
Hardwood floor looks like.
hardwood floors. It's a
In
great place.
is that a common
Yeah,
thing in New
it's
York
just
City apartments? Hardwood floors.
fairly
That,
common. A
yeah.
lot of them, as we were looking for apartments, we noticed that a lot of places have like hardwood floors don't last forever, and you know they're starting to get replaced with LVT, which is not the most pleasant thing in the world, but I'm sure it's a heck of a lot cheaper.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what we've got. Hardwood in our house that came with the house. We didn't put it in, and now a dog. And the previous owners had a
Mm,
dog, and so we're anticipating at some point that the
yeah,
hardwood will be destroyed to the point.
yeah. And like
Right now, it's got
hardwood
that
is
aged,
like,
nice look, but yeah,
yeah, yeah. It looks good when it's aged. As long as it's not like a piece of actual damage. It's just scuffs and stains every once in a while, and
yeah,
blah blah blah. And like, it's great. I like it a lot. It shows that the place has been lived in. And we found out that the woman who lived here before us lived here for 60 years.
oh wow,
So now I'm seeing like, oh, she did that. She did that. She did that. All the
yeah,
holes in the wall, like not holes in the wall, but stuff where you could see where a painting was. And like,
She-
there was obviously a rug on the floor over here. And like,
yeah,
it's pretty cool.
not too
Yeah.
much
And she was probably paying $400.
for 60 years, yeah, which was a lot back in the when she started, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly.
400 pence.
So yeah, so we're settling in. We're
Yeah.
settling in. It's good. So new webcam, also new microphone. I bought because I was already in the DJI ecosystem with this
Hmm.
webcam, and I have one of their drones. I also bought the DJI Mic Mini, which so far is incredible. This is the charging case, and it comes with two microphones, one of which is on me, and then the receiver is just down connected to my computer, and it was very, very simple to set up. And like, you can tell me if it sounds better than the Yeti I was on previous to this. But at the very least, the convenience of just having this little thing is incredible.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, Biter Digit was saying she has a Osmo Pocket 3 with
Yeah,
a mic. So have you tried it with your phone yet, or
I have
just?
not. No,
And how is it connected to
this
your
is my
computer?
first time.
Bluetooth?
So there's the mic, and there's a transmitter which I'm wearing, and a receiver which has a little USB 3 plug on it that I just have stuck
Oh yeah,
into a USB hub right now.
right.
But you can also just stick it right into the base of your phone,
Yeah,
or I can stick it. It can connect it wirelessly to the webcam I'm using right now if I wanted to.
yeah. So
That's pretty cool.
the price was around what in the U.S.
I think it was about
pre-tariff pricing?
160 charger plus two microphones setup.
Yeah.
You can pay less just to get one receiver and one transmitter and one receiver. But I'm a
Which,
sucker for a charging case.
yeah, once you've, it's definitely like a nice. Sorry, I'm trying to find the right. There we go. DJI mic, elevated audio on the go. Right, that's the one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because that's I. If you didn't tell me that, I'd be hard pressed to think that you didn't have some sort of semi-professional audio setup. Like
Mm.
I'm sure, like distinguished, an audiophile nerd would be like, well, obviously Chris is using a whatever expensive microphone, and Tim's using a lapel mic. But the average user, like if I played that for my kid or for my mom or whatever, I don't. I mean, my mom has hearing aids, so I guess that's a bad comparison. But no offense, mom, if you're watching. But yeah, I think yeah, and the convenience of having it where you can you're moving around. I'm like have to be, very much
Mm-hmm.
conscious of where I'm talking.
Yeah.
That's definitely nice. And then the portability too with your phone just makes
Right.
it.
And it has. I don't have it turned on, but it has a noise reduction feature that I can just turn on by pushing a button on the microphone. So
Right.
if you ever hear like traffic or anything, let me know, and I can turn it on, and we'll see what kind of difference it makes.
Yeah, we'll see if the taxi cabs drive by or whatever that were making noise the other time
Mm-hmm.
we recorded. But I would, yeah, there's no even whatever room noise you have, if there is any right now, is I don't hear really. Like I would think you have a
And that's
semi.
great. That's like really all I, as like a non-professional, could ask, right? I just want a nice quiet mic that's easy to work with.
Yeah, yeah,
And the Yeti was, I think, good in its day, but now it's clunky and didn't do a great job with room noise. And
yeah,
so, yeah, I've definitely binary digit. I've seen a lot of people using the Rode wireless mics, and I was thinking about it, but then I just happened to see this photographer who I follow on YouTube do a short about these, and he was like, "If you're thinking about this sort of thing, you should definitely get these."
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm really tempted to, even though I like I do a TikTok once a month maybe, and I don't ever do any sort of live streaming video, whatever stuff. Influencer things from my phone, but just for the pure fact of being able to record a conversation or
Hmm.
for a podcast even or whatever, like infinitely easier than
Right?
carting any amount of gear around for the price that's
Yeah,
cheaper than portable gear.
yeah,
Yeah, I know Rode makes like I mean we're talking about DJI here obviously, but like Rode does have a setup that's similar to that with something,
hmm hmm
and for like especially for portable work or whatever. But yeah,
yeah,
I the price sounds great. I mean, maybe I guess you could probably do a comparison of that with something that's like 3 times as expensive, and you're in the wind, and which one sounds better, which is actually better at
sure.
whatever. But
And this one, they came with the little wind guards. I don't know what their name actually is. The
oh,
little
like
puffy
the
things.
cat, what are they called? Dead cats,
Um,
dead cat things.
was that what they call them?
I think they're called a dead cat or something. I forget what they used to call them.
Yeah,
Rode has new smaller mics now. Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, which would be
And you
helpful for
definitely
winter.
see, like in the past year or two, a bunch of the YouTubers I follow have got the Rode clip-ons either on their hat or their
Yeah,
lapel or whatever.
it's so funny. It's like, I think we were talking about that last week about just the, in regards to visually cuts, like in a video, you can have like, nobody cares now if there's just like abrupt cuts everywhere and mid-sentence cuts and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And similarly with mics, where it used to be like 10 years ago, you'd be horrified if you could see the lapel mic. Like, you don't want that. Whereas now it's just
Oh, yeah,
like,
yeah.
here I'm
Totally.
literally holding the lapel mic, and it drives every like 40-plus-year-old video nerd baddie that they're like
Yeah.
holding it,
Yeah.
improperly. But yeah, just all that stuff has gone by the wayside.
It's interesting, slightly interesting, in that like 20 years ago, like live performances migrated from having to mic up an entire stage to just giving everybody a little flesh colored
Mm.
face mic. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that is like, I've never cared for the look of it, but I'm like, that just must make their life so much easier and production so much cheaper to not have to deal with catching sound at any location on a stage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
TikTok ruins everything. Definitely the TikTokification of audio gear and video gear. And I do appreciate the like lo-fi approach to like, whether it's vulnerability or it's just like laziness, there's something in between there of what TikTok has brought in terms of people being willing to just, this is me, this is putting it out into the
Yeah.
world, doing that. But yeah,
And
I
you've
still
seen how
have that
lazy.
like,
So,
yeah, see how much booze I keep in the boxes. I still have that like tinge of like, ugh, when I see someone like hand holding a lapel mic like
a
that.
lav
Still,
mic, or
yeah.
yeah.
So if you were right now, let's say your partner was in the room and we were chatting, I was chatting with both of you, she could have the mic on,
Mm-hmm.
and I wonder how that would, I guess I'd get it still as a one channel track, but
Mm-hmm.
theoretically you could record locally with two tracks, obviously, something. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
That's super fascinating. There's a really good app for on iOS. I don't think it's on Android. Called Detail. Detail iOS. Let's just switch to the screen share. I've been following them for a while. There's a bunch of these kind of apps out there, like for video editing on your phone, basically. But they do
Yeah.
a really good job of sort of balancing the AI-ness of things with also actual editing tools built into it, or like overlaying a reaction video, and just like you paste in a YouTube URL and then you can just actually make a video off of that or whatever, those kinds of
Mm-hmm.
things. And they've gone the route of like a subscription per year fee, which I respect. I think just like you're going to charge for it, but you're not going to steal my data. So we're good on that part, as opposed to like TikTok or what's the CapCut, I think is their app. And enough of like to automatically edit your thing for you and whatever, and captions and all that kind of stuff. But something like that where they actually allow you to use it as a camera. So where am I? I just want to see what I look like. But like I've got my phone in between us. Let's say you and I are sitting at a table, and it'll use the back camera for you and the front camera for me, and then record those as two separate video feeds. But then also, if you have a microphone, you can have separate audio feeds. And it becomes
I
like your
see.
phone becomes this
Yeah.
multi-track recording device that you just
Yeah.
carry around in your pocket, which is super
Yeah.
powerful, I think. And I really love. I don't have a good use for it, like in terms of I've even tried like just getting my kids to record a pretend podcast with me, and they're like, "What? Why would I do that? This is boring." But and you can do remote recording too, which is like what we're doing, where I would give you the app link, let's say, and you'd sign in through your phone, and then we'd be able to record remotely as well. And then obviously they've got live streaming as well, right from the phone, which it all kind of breaks my brain a little bit still. Like many times we've talked about with
Yeah.
technology, I'm
Yeah.
the old man waving my hand.
Like
at the clouds.
stuff. Like technology is getting better, and like standards are getting lower, like in a good way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just to make it so, like, the important thing is the conversation. It doesn't matter really what the quality is.
Exactly. Which
Or
is
even
actually a
that we're in the
great,
same room. We don't need to be in a studio. Just like
it's a
two
great
people with phones
segue
and internet connections. It's good enough.
to, let's see, how big is that? Yeah. Great segue to one of the things I was going to ask you about today was how bad does an audio podcast have to be unlistenable? So a little bit of context, I have a client where the guest, great conversation they've had, and there's a bit of static, sort of like I don't know how to describe it. It sounds like clipping, like as if he talked really loud, but it actually just kind of chops off half a second almost, or not even, of his word at the end of a sentence, let's say, randomly, not consistently. And so it's not an adjustment where I can like, roll off the bass or high end or whatever. And then it's not consistent static that you can kind of like just tune out after you listen long enough. It kind of just choppy. It's almost like an audio gate like shuts the signal off, or like just barely perceptible, but just enough that if you're paying attention to it, like Binary just said, I can't listen to a podcast if there's static or the volumes are very off with each person, for sure. Like that's anything like that. But I do find like if it's consistently bad in one way for the whole podcast, then you can kind of like figure out, or at least my brain kind of tunes that out. Or if someone says a lot, or if they're a like person or whatever, you kind of just tune it out if you listen long enough, but at first it's really jarring. So anyways, so this isn't like, I'm not debating whether someone would unsubscribe from the whole show, but we're debating now, what, do we publish the episode? Do we try and redo it? Probably won't be able to redo it in time, but it's a great conversation they had. And,
I'm like, I don't know, like without listening to this particular example, I don't know how I would feel about it, but I do know that every once in a while, a podcast I listen to they'll have an introduction to the episode being like, this is our latest episode. We, as it turns out, had some audio problems. We hope it's not too bad. We understand if you can't get through it. Here's the show.
Right. And so do you
It's
still
like
listen?
acknowledging the problem. And like you say, if you get through it long enough, it's like the air conditioning machine in the background in the summer. Like your brain just get used to it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where this one is like, it's borderline. And so it's good because they have a Discord, like the podcast has a Discord that I can send a preview link to like get some random feedback from people. And some people are like, well, I listened for 20 minutes, didn't matter. But then by around half an hour, I was like, no, actually it's great. Like, because it sort of increases and decreases and you kind of forget about it. And then again, if it was like every 5 seconds, there's a little click, you kind of would, I think, or maybe not 5 seconds, but whatever, you tune it out,
If it
but
was
it's kind
random, that would be a problem.
Yeah, that's where it is. It's random. And so,
But
I'm
it'd be
not a big
more of a problem.
audio geek, but is there a way to record two different sources at once? I'd assume so. Yeah. So this is using a tool like Riverside where they recorded locally. The funny thing is, or the way that we've narrowed it down is that because it's both the cloud recording where Riverside records it in the cloud, but then also locally they record a version and it's everywhere. So it's something between the gear to the internet to Riverside, in this case, recording, basically allows or caused the issue. So it's, unfortunately, in this case, we're kind of hooped, as they say, the technical term.
There's no good version.
Yeah, and we've even enlisted Riverside themselves to try and troubleshoot and on their end, and nothing can be saved at this point in terms of that. The one kind of funny spin on this is like what you can do. It's an hour-long conversation, so this isn't really that practical, but because of tools like we've talked about on previous conversations, like Descript or Riverside, let's say, but where I could generate a transcript of everything that was said, even though there's like that little audio issue, the AI doesn't care. It'll transcribe that, obviously. And then from that transcription, the guest could theoretically re-record their side of the conversation, just saying just literally reading the transcript, right? It would take them an hour plus if you didn't, like an hour at least if you didn't make any mistakes. So it's not really feasible in this case. Or the even weirder version is like, I could train Descript on this person's voice and then redo the recording inside of Descript with the AI bot pretending to be the guest, let's say, which gets into weird areas of like, is that going to end up better or worse? And is it disingenuous? This isn't like, we're not talking like, interviewing Mark Zuckerberg where we had bad audio or something, or Tim Cook, but so anyways, just an interesting thought experiment anyways that I've been sort of wrestling with this week with this client. But it happens every so often too, where sometimes we have to decide, is it worth redoing it? Is it worth just publishing it with a bit of a disclaimer? And this one's kind of in that gray area where we're not 100% sure. And then you add into the mix deadlines of having to be out next week, or sponsor spots that are recorded for this episode. And so it's not like we can just say, no, we're not going to publish anything. So anyways, but Binary just, I think a disclaimer is more than fair, which that's where I
would
think
agree
I'm
with that
going
as
to
well.
land.
Like err on the side of caution too. Like,
Yeah.
it's somebody in the audience is going to be like, oh, what's wrong with the audio? These people, do they know what they're doing? The disclaimer just makes sure that that person knows that you know there's something wrong with it.
Yeah. So we don't get the angry email. Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. Or just the random tweet that we don't ever see, or whatever we call it, boost
Yeah.
tweet
And
these
let me
days.
ask you a question. How
Yeah.
do you feel about listening to podcasts at a higher speed?
Ooh, high speed. So I'm not a purist in that sense. I don't, like you're saying, like 1x or 1x, obviously, 1.5 to 2x speed.
I listen to 0.75.
But yeah, it is funny because I edit actually, so I can't. I do edit often at 2x effectively. It says 50% in Logic, but it's 2x. I assume my percentages are, anyways. Yeah, by energy it says she can't do it. There are some shows I do it for and some I don't. So I use Pocket Casts, and so I can set it on a per show basis of I want this one to be 2x, I want this one to be 1x, I want this one to be 3x, let's say. Or the tooling where you can have it automatically cut out silences. That's another sort of sketchy. Again, it's like I'm supposed to do that as the editor, not you. Like I'll choose.
Yeah. Right.
And so it's like that meme of what was it for Dune? I think where people were like watching it on an airplane or screen, like some movie where they're like, I'm watching it like just like the director intended to, and it's like this fridge
on my
TV
iPhone
version
in the back of it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So podcasts, of course, can't be quite as precious as a $100 million movie production, but I think it's fine. I understand why a podcaster who's like, if someone's listening to this and they're like, I can only handle listening to you, Chris, at 2x. I can understand being a little like, it would kind of hit you a little bit, but at the same point, I know people are doing it like while they're washing dishes or walking the dog or whatever.
Exactly.
And yeah.
There's only so much time in the day.
How about you? What do you do?
Yeah. I don't listen at faster speeds for no particular reason except that I'm not really in a hurry, and I do like the cadence of a natural voice and all that kind of stuff. Like, it doesn't bother me when people, like, if I had a podcast and people told me they listened to it faster, I'd have no problem with that. The best argument I've heard against it is from there's this Star Trek podcast I listen to where they they're a couple funny guys, they consider themselves comedians, and what they're doing is funny, and but I listen to it because they also do thoughtful discussion about the episodes and stuff like that. But like, they think speeding up a podcast ruins the comedy timing because comedy is based on timing, right?
Yeah.
And like, I understand that argument, but at the same time, timing is relative, right? It's the timing is funny because this beat was, whatever it is, like twice as long as this previous beat. It's not because it was 2 seconds longer than this previous 1 second beat. So I would argue that the timing is still intact because it's all relative.
Right. Yeah, because I see what you're saying. It's all, whether it was 5-second wait before you replied or whatever before, now it's all half that or whatever. So
yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I could say. Does it do?
Everybody's.
Do they have like a live audience and then you hear some of the audience clapping stuff, or is it just a comedy podcast?
No. That would be different, actually, because then that would be strange. I've never listened to a live podcast at a faster speed.
Yeah. The funny thing I find is because I edit at 2x all the time, then when I play it back or test it before it goes out, or I listen to it, later in my podcast player, everyone sounds drunk because they're just talking so much slower.
Because you got so used to it before.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So like Chris Coyer or Dave Rupert or whatever, like they sound like drunk idiots when, actually it's interesting. Your phone was ringing. I heard like a faint ring, but very minimal. I wonder if it's even cutting that much out off the mic. Or no, you said you didn't have the noise reduction on.
I did not have the noise. I do not have the noise reduction on.
Yeah. Interesting. It's kind of fun or interesting to see, like, because you have the lapel mic, your body would act as a natural like sound barrier to stuff behind you. Like if a car goes by, let's say, obviously it could shake.
Right. Or in this case, like below me.
Yeah. Whereas this mic would sort of like pick up stuff behind me. I mean, it has its own built-in. Anyways.
But also my watch was ringing as well, so I'm surprised that wasn't.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to, so I probably was just focused on my own voice, hearing myself. So
anyway, sorry for the interruption.
No, it's fine.
I gotta remember to put that in do not disturb mode.
Yeah. Um, so that's unlistenable audio. And then was there any? You didn't have any other gear that we were talking about, right? You got the mic, the camera.
The mic and the camera were like, and actually we hadn't even talked about the camera. I just happened
Oh
to
yeah.
have the camera. I bought it for a vacation last year, and putting it to use seems like a wise thing to do.
What was the camera again? Just for anyways new.
It's the DJI Action 3.
Oh yeah, you're like
Um,
Mr. DJI.
yeah, I have a couple 3 years ago. I bought the DJI. Uh, well, now I can't remember the name of it. The DJI Mavic Mini Pro,
Osmo
which is
Action
like their
3.
little, their
This
no,
guy.
no, no, their littlest drone, their littlest,
Mm.
consumer facing drone
Yeah.
product. Small enough that it doesn't need to be registered, which as it turns out is all just marketing, because registering it is just a matter of $20 at the FAA.
Okay.
But it's a great little thing, and like if you have the ability to pick one up and you're going on a big vacation, I highly recommend it, because it's just like it's a drone and it's fun to fly and all that kind of stuff, but it has a great camera in it, so it's just an alternative source of photographs that you would never be able to take without this sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible. Like looking back through
Nice.
vacation photos, my favorite ones are always just like, look at the giant sand dunes and look at the giant mountain vista and look at all that kind of stuff. And like totally, from my perspective, it's been totally worth it. Like my partner kind of laughed at me when I got it. She was like, we'll use this one time and you'll forget all about it. But no, I bring it on every trip because it's small enough and light enough and easy enough to fly. And the pictures are definitely not, professional quality photographs, but the perspectives you get, they're just like
Yeah.
unbelievable. You can't get it any other way.
And infinitely better than obviously like you're walking around with your phone or whatever trying to capture a
Yeah.
memory or something. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, that's obviously, you still need that for sure. It's just a drone will get you stuff that you could never get any other way.
And are you ever worried about like how I'm just like whatever the cost is, I'm worried I'm going to fly it off into the ocean or blow it, whatever, like how much fear of.
DJI has their own version of AppleCare, which includes,
Gotcha.
I think, 2 flyaway incidences. So if you completely lose it in the drink or something, they'll replace it.
Right.
And I did actually fly it into. I bought the one I got because it has some decent sensors to stop it from crashing into something. But I did crash it one time and kind of bent the arm, and I sent it back and gave them like $60 or something, and they basically sent me just a brand new drone.
Nice.
So it's very similar to AppleCare. You just pay them like an extra 10% on top of whatever you're buying, and you got peace of mind for a couple of years.
That's good to know. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
often thought about it because my family goes to Mexico sometimes, and it would be amazing. Well, there is like a couple of people there who have drones, and you see them like following dolphins
Yeah.
out on the ocean or whatever, and it's just like,
Oh, it's so fun. It's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Where do you go in Mexico?
Mazatlan is where
Okay.
they're going on the west coast, like right at the Baja Peninsula. How about you?
Interesting. My dad's my dad has a brother who married a Mexican woman, and so they've spent a lot of time in Mexico. And actually, right now they live on the Baja Peninsula.
Oh
That's
yeah,
where they retired. Yeah, which I
that's
haven't been to yet, but I keep meaning to. They used to live in a town called Guaymas, which is basically on the other side of the Sea of Cortez, on the mainland of Mexico.
right. Okay,
So they
gotcha.
just kind of flipped sides of the Sea of Cortez.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's we haven't been for a few years, but we were there right as COVID was hitting the world, actually, in March of 2020. So that was a wild experience But anyways, yeah. So and then the camera that you're actually using right now is you said Osmo Action 3. Is that or is it an older version of that one?
I think this is it. Yeah.
Okay. Because yeah, that looks great too. I love that. Like, well, there is often the argument of like dual purpose or multi-purpose devices, like as opposed to just a webcam that I'm staring at that sits mounted on my computer versus like something like this where you could pick it up and take it, and obviously then you have to remember to put it back if you're going to use it for a weekly call or a podcast or whatever, or Zoom meetings and stuff. But having dual purpose, so how often does it leave your house, your apartment?
Not very often. So I'm thrilled to find a use for it. And I need to find a decent stand for it, because now it's on like a cheap articulated arm just kind of clamped to a bookshelf next to me, and it does jiggle a little bit, hopefully not too badly.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I've noticed. I didn't really realize how much even just like mouse movement or whatever would shake my desk or the monitor and stuff or mine's.
Hmm.
So I have just off camera here. I have like an Elgato has like some of their arms that you can buy, like are
Hmm.
sort of like what you're saying, but I can screw it into the wall, which obviously isn't going to move if I'm. But I still haven't
Yeah.
settled on where it's going to be and if there's studs there or not. And so it's just actually for like 6 months ever since I rearranged my office, I still haven't committed to it going anywhere. So there it sits, just
Yeah.
staring at me, like waiting to hold something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, those definitely help. So, but yeah, it looks great. Let me just switch back to there we go, or the full.
Yeah, it looks totally fine. Like I think we're suffering from like I'm on Wi-Fi, so I think it's the resolution is jumping up and down just a little bit, but
And you'd miss
it's
out
totally
on
fine.
like I
Great.
know. Well, speaking of binary digit, I don't know if she's still around, but like I know on her stream she's got something I forget, like a Canon maybe or a Nikon, probably Canon. Where you've got. Oh, she is still here. Some sort of like something with some depth perception. What's that? I forget what the terminology is now on cameras, but anyways, where you could like the
Yeah.
blurring out the background, not Gaussian blur, that's Photoshop. Anyways,
Yeah. Yeah.
so you could hide your boxes in a blur,
Yeah. Exactly. Right. Exactly.
focus in on a depth of
Right.
field or whatever kind of
If we were in
view.
Discord, I could just have Discord blur everything. But
Yeah, I think actually there's probably effects on. I'm sure there is. I just
yeah.
haven't messed with it too.
Yeah, I do have a camera, a Canon M200 around here somewhere. That's like a decent vacation camera, but we don't use it for anything else. And I could look at hooking that up as well, and like just getting a little platform that sits behind the iMac and
Yeah,
holds it
Fuji
steady.
XT20. That's what she said. She's XT.
Mm-mm.
Did I say that right? T20. Yeah.
Oh,
What
bokeh.
else?
I thought bokeh was the way a light refracts in a lens and gives you the little,
The dots.
you know, yeah, like different lenses will give you different bokeh, which are the different like circles of how the background lights are being blurred out.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, she can chime in here, speak for herself, I
And
guess.
I know that's like a thing that people chase, like as a lens with
Yeah.
good bokeh.
So, um, the blur of the background is what she's saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah,
Which
I've
that's
heard good things about Fuji cameras. I don't
yeah,
need I just need an okay camera. So we
yeah.
went
I
with
know
the
for
Canon.
for the
Yeah.
the random. Maybe I will
Yeah.
call you, or maybe I won't. Live streams.
Right. And to be honest, the iPhone is better than that in 95% of circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Unfortunately, I should just test this while I'm here. The dog cam. There's no. See, there we go. No dog today. He's out
No, no.
somewhere. Kids are home. I need to just turn off this text, by the way. There. Okay. So that will look better than my actual camera.
This is your phone, right?
Yeah, this is my iPhone 13 Pro. So, but I can't hold it and talk at the same time,
Right.
not surprisingly. Focus. But yeah, so that's where actually one of those dual purpose devices, but I often want my phone in my hand or
For
I'm
other things.
responding to a text
Right.
from family or whatever while I'm doing something like this, that it never makes
Yeah.
sense, which is where the Elgato going, that's where I was going. I jumped off of that to something else, but the Elgato, what are they called again? They're mounts. Here, let's switch back to the computer version. Oh, they've got such a crazy busy website for what should be a simple, yeah, like these things. So I've got that little guy, and then
Mm-hmm.
some. So it's great for that, like putting it on overhead
Yeah.
cameras or whatever. So I could mount my phone to the left of
Yeah.
me here, right, and then just have it
Yeah.
permanently mounted.
I would like to do some overhead stuff at some
Oh yeah,
point
you were saying
soon.
for
Yeah.
D&D? No, what was it?
For Magic the Gathering.
Magic Layer, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I really like the Elgato gear in general, and then the that stuff.
Okay.
It was just like a random on my Christmas wish list thing that I'd forgotten I'd put there, and then mother-in-law bought it for me, and so now I have it.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
But I haven't. Yeah, I had it set up
Yeah.
nicely, perfectly in my old office arrangement when my desk was sort of pivoted, and then rearranged and haven't
Yeah.
settled on a new one. So
I think the other thing we talked about is I'm needing a new computer,
oh
and I
right,
went
that
to
was
the Apple Store last weekend and checked out the new 15-inch MacBook Airs, and I think that's the way I'm going to go. It's not that much. It's noticeably heavier, but not to any degree that would cause, it still fits in my backpack. I can still pick it up easily. It still goes under my arm and goes down to the coffee shop. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, everything's so focused on thin and light. The Air to the Pro is so minimal.
Yeah. So
Because they're
okay.
both so small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at Binary Digits comment here.
Oh yeah.
Sony dominates for webcam market, which is interesting. I didn't know that specifically.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
does
So when
Sony does
they
Sony
have like
dominate in the vlogging market or streaming specifically?
bit of both, I think. Definitely the vlogging stuff, because
Okay.
they had a couple models that they focused on for vlogging, and
Yeah.
and then the Sony Alpha series is the one that's really popular. If like some of the
Mm-hmm.
tech Twitch
Right.
streamers I know that I like, either
Yeah.
clients or client adjacent to use, where they've got these crazy like $2,000 to $3,000
Got it.
setups that
Okay.
for basically her partner Keith has the Sony A6100, which I think, I don't know, again, I get mixed up on whether I'm remembering US pricing or Canadian pricing, but I always look at the US pricing, I think, oh, that's not bad, and then I check out the Canadian pricing, like, oh, that's actually quite bad. I mean, no disrespect to Keith or whoever has one, but more power to you, obviously. But sometimes the tech
Right.
nerds are like, they're doing like Zoom calls with about their code and like their cameras in the little corner, but they've got this like supreme, amazing camera just to basically talk about VS Code. So, but yeah, if you got the developer money, I guess you might as well spend it. Yeah, US pricing plus all the other fun stuff. So, speaking of, this is not even a segue, I'm going to pretend is actually happening, but the other thing that some clients have been asking about is YouTube podcasts. So, putting a podcast, you can upload a video show, any sort of videos, doesn't have to be any sort of official, like this. So this playlist for this show that I have on my YouTube channel, I'll just pull it up here just for fun, could be made into, I'm on the wrong account. Don't look at the numbers. Not that they care too much. This playlist of the videos where you and I have been doing lately could be made into a podcast that people can subscribe to. Both the RSS feed could be available for people to subscribe to. So just going here and then clicking set as podcast, and it'll just basically become a podcast that people can subscribe to. And what I like, it's basically, if you use YouTube Music, the app, then it becomes sort of a subscribable podcast alongside other podcasts that you might subscribe to in a way that's different than videos that you like, channels you subscribe to on YouTube. And somehow I don't use YouTube Music. Do you use YouTube Music at all?
I have used it. It's pretty good. I don't stick to one for very long. Although I never use Spotify. I kind of jump between YouTube and Apple Music.
Interesting.
Or nothing.
And do you subscribe to podcasts inside of YouTube Music?
I do not. No.
Yeah. I mean, it's a new thing in the last
Overcast
year
for podcasts.
oh yeah. And so, like, I understand YouTube obviously wanting to have, everybody stay in the YouTube app. That's obviously what their goal would be, and not leave it ever again. And so it just creates a little bit of a confusion as far as, like, if you got it as a podcast that people can subscribe to, then if it also is an Apple podcast, so like for an existing podcast, for example, like Shop Duck Show, they have a podcast already, 600 some episodes, audio version that's been there for 15 years or whatever now. And then this becomes another show that someone could subscribe to, the video version, let's say, that's in YouTube. But it's not always there, because they might, like, if audio is a primary and video is secondary, and let's say the guest has a bad audio, let's say, hypothetically, and so you're not putting out a video version because people might complain about it or whatever, but the show does live on regardless in audio form. And how do you sort of manage those two things? And that's where it's a interesting world of trying to balance. YouTube as this massive monster of a content platform, but they're not like, they could take or leave podcasting. They don't care about podcasting as the medium, just like Spotify doesn't really care about podcasting as a medium. They just want content to keep you on their app.
Right.
Whereas an app like Overcast, Apple Podcasts, insert your favorite podcast app, doesn't really care if you're using their app. They just want you, or living in their app, sorry, as long as you're using their app to listen to the stuff when you want to listen to it. And so there's this tension right now amongst podcast nerds, it has been for a long time, about whether it's good to recommend using YouTube as a platform for podcast distribution, or if it's sort of antithetical and goes against the idea of like what podcasting was created for. And this argument flares up every few years as new technology happens. And the difference is there's kind of this perfect amalgamation right now of like video being really popular and justified, like, or legitimately so, not just like theoretically so, like it has been for years. And then obviously podcasting having been popular, and what are we doing with podcasting? And so, and overlay that with like open source versus closed, and that software analogy, but also with podcasts. And so anyways, any thoughts?
Yeah. I would think that if you, like, I'm totally on board with the idea that a podcast should be available through open platforms. Like, I think the people who are distributing their content as and calling it a podcast, but distributing it through only Spotify, I don't think that's a podcast. I think that's a radio show. But podcast is also podcast speaks to distribution, but also these days it speaks to production quality and expectation of what kind of show you're going to get. But if this were 15 years ago, Joe Rogan would be on XM radio, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
They would have bought him out, just like Spotify bought him, effectively.
Just like XM bought, didn't they bought?
Stern.
They bought Stern for a while, right? Yeah. But I think if you're going to call yourself a podcast, like, I don't care if you distribute on Spotify and all these other things, or you do it on YouTube as well. Like, as long as it's available through the normal podcast ways, then a podcast is a podcast is a podcast. It's available through YouTube, then fine. Somebody watches your podcast on YouTube. That's fine.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what this one article, which I'll include in the link, is from Tom Webster, Tom Webster? Yeah, Tom Webster, who's old school podcasting nerd guru guy. And kind of like talks about, as much as he wants to support, like, the idea of new stuff is great, but also if we don't keep some of the quirks, and he compares it to like owning a Saab car versus owning a GM, generic vehicle. If we don't keep some of those neat things about podcasting around and support that platform, then it's all for naught. And so something like transcriptions came around because the podcasting community was sort of clamoring for it. Apple eventually added it, et cetera. It's now part of the spec in a way, but that maybe wouldn't have happened again, just like in open source software development, where things kind of like happen because the community can build it without waiting for gatekeepers to say it's allowed. And so that's sort of the tension that we're dealing with. If we all just say whatever YouTube does is podcasting, then we're in trouble.
Sure.
But like you said.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So that's the interesting angle on this. And so anytime a client is like, hey, we want our show on YouTube, or we want our show on Spotify, I'm trying to like hang on to that, exactly like you said. I don't have anybody who's like a Joe Rogan, but
would you publish a podcast on YouTube that didn't have video?
I've done that for a while. Like Transistor actually has, I think they still have it. Don't quote me on this, but they have had, Transistor being the podcast hosting platform, where you can actually one-click publish a podcast to YouTube, where they would automatically basically put a video, like a still frame up your show artwork or whatever. And let's just see here. Go back down. Yeah, YouTube auto
like
posting.
they do for a lot of music.
So then it could automatically publish it to YouTube with just audio, but with your artwork as the thing there. So then it's also exists on YouTube. So that to me is the best of both worlds, but there isn't a video of me talking, or in that case the podcast people talking, right? It's just audio only. And the difference now is a lot more podcasters are doing video versions of their show because the gear is cheaper, the apps are cheaper, like we've talked about just in this conversation earlier. And so then what do you do? What is that form and how does it exist
Right.
alongside the audio version? And so the
Yeah.
one
I think, yeah.
I was just going to say, to finish that all off sort of with YouTube, Spotify, and then open podcasting. Spotify is the one that's the most like, what's the phrase? Like the wolf in sheep's clothing, because it appears like a nice little podcast audio music app, just like whatever. They've recently added video now as a thing you can watch, which is understandable. They're competing with YouTube. But so then podcasters will use them to host their video. But I somehow trust Spotify less with my video content than I do YouTube. YouTube's like, they have to have video, right? Like that's all they do music subscription now, but they have to do video. And that's their bread and butter, whereas music is sort of a secondary, whereas Spotify is like music is our first thing and video is kind of secondary. And so I feel like if you're putting all your video eggs, let's say, in the Spotify basket, at any moment, just like with podcasting, they could be like, actually, it's not making us enough money. We're just going to shut that off. And that's where I get
yeah, I think we talked about this before. I think when we first started talking, it's like you can't put all your content eggs in one basket. You've got to, at the very least, if you're not publishing to Spotify and YouTube and the other thing, you've at the very least got to have your own website. So that when Spotify does decide not to support video any longer, you can say, all our old videos are on our website. You can go find it there. No problem.
Yeah. How do you, that's the, video is the one that's like, how do you host video on your website?
Well, then I would go to my website and be like, oh, here's the link to the YouTube video.
Yeah, exactly.
But you have a website that they can go figure out what's going on, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's where.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then when like TikTok goes away for like Americans for a while there, like for a week or whatever it was, everyone's freaking out because they're going to lose their audience. And like, how do I deal with that? And if you had some number of your audience in a newsletter or on a YouTube channel or on your podcast or whatever, you can at least communicate with them. But so whereas if YouTube decides to go away or Spotify decides to go away or shut off your access. So fascinating times ahead. It's always in flux a little bit, but
yes,
that's the fun of this, I guess. If it's just stayed the same, we'd be bored. All right.
I'd rather be bored.
Yeah. Well, especially no thanks to your government. I'd much rather be bored.
I know. We have we talk about politics for 2 minutes. Like I'm coming to the realization that for me personally, there's a lot of horrible things happening. I would rather they were not happening. I do see an upside to all of this bullshit. And that is whenever this is over, and I do think we'll climb ourselves out, but our standing in the world will be so diminished. And I'm okay with that. I think America has been too strong in the global economy for too long, has had too much power. We're going to come out of this, and other countries and other regions of the world are going to be a bit more self-sufficient. And I am looking forward to that because then we can be more of our participant in the global economy instead of the one making all the decisions.
Right. Or the one that everyone kind of doesn't want to risk upsetting because you're making all the... Yeah.
Right.
And we can see that. Go ahead.
Yeah. Start kicking out the military bases. Start like the EU's already making big moves to start developing their own weapons capabilities, and shoring up their own military industrial complex, which is like has its own downsides, but I think self-sufficiency is a good thing. And knocking down the bully who's been lording over the rest of the world for the past 50 years, is not a bad thing either.
Yeah.
We could do with a little knocking down.
couple pegs.
Yeah.
That's definitely up here in Canada. You can see it is crazy how quickly it happens because it was like literally grocery store shelves. It's almost like they had it ready. It could be conspiracy theory, I guess, and whatever. But like the U.S. stuff is shoved to the
Yeah.
side or off the shelf, and Canadian content,
Yeah.
but Canadian stuff
Right.
is like front and center, and
Yeah.
yeah,
And as soon as that stuff starts to take hold, like exports are like an important part of our economy. And
mhm.
so as soon as that starts getting kicked in the nuts, businesses are going to be like, hold on a second. This is not sustainable. We need to restore some good relationship with the rest of the world so that I can sell my M&Ms and my Oreos and my whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah, we
that's
just
like,
switched to there's I forget what the Canadian brand is right now. Like we don't have Heinz ketchup, which actually is packaged in Canada. I don't know. It gets confusing where you're like,
oh,
wait, the ketchup is actually made in the U.S., but then we package it here. So are we mad at Heinz completely, or just
there's so much of that kind of shenanigan where something's manufactured in Mexico and then assembled in
yeah?
somewhere else, and packaged somewhere else. It's
I
crazy.
It's going to be interesting to see how much because like there's obviously like the online perception and like what used to be Twitter, but like whatever we're calling the online sphere of like what
Yeah.
online reality is versus real reality. Like I know a friend was saying like at airports, right? Like we're hearing about how Canadians are not traveling to the US as much or changing travel plans or whatever, traveling inside the country instead of going to the US. But then airports are still just as busy right now. And so is that like just the
Mhm.
short term, and the long tail is like this summer, let's say Disney's, whatever
Yeah.
travel is way lower than it would have been otherwise. And I doubt they'd publish numbers to deflate the travel
Yeah.
thing, but
I suspect there's a window of people who've already made plans are mostly still going to keep to those plans. And so there's a window there for America or the administration or whomever to try and assuage any, bad feelings that might be happening across the world. But I don't think that's going to be happening. So I think in 6 months or so, I think numbers are going to be legitimately down. And
right.
I think I have seen numbers as well. Like numbers now are down like 12% of Europeans traveling to the United States.
Yeah. And that's where I think like Europeans have, like Canadians have limited options. Like we can fly over you to get to Mexico, let's say,
Mm.
but going anywhere else is a bigger venture, obviously, and that may or may not happen depending on how wealthy you are. Whereas Europeans are like, well, we literally can go out anywhere in the world just as easily. Let's just
Yeah.
not go
Yeah, exactly.
to Denver this year or wherever they
Yeah.
happen to be going. So, yeah. Anyways, well, I was. It's funny because I've been thinking about how recently, over the last number of years, actually, like I have all my clients basically are U.S. based, and so it'd be fun to like
Hmm.
figure out a way to either time it with like conferences or whatever to like actually get face to face with some people who I've been working with for like 5 or 10 years. But
Hmm.
obviously this year isn't going to be that year, so
Yeah.
maybe we'll have to have the podcast therapy with Tim conference in next year, maybe, or 4 years, depending on how it goes.
We can go to Iceland. Let's go to
Yeah,
Iceland.
right. Neutral territory, Switzerland. We'll meet in Switzerland. I'm sure they're somehow the enemy of the States now too, but by the time we finish recording. Okay, well, thanks. And if you're still out there buying a digit, thanks for commenting and watching along, and anyone else too. And we'll see you guys again next Thursday if the stars align. So thanks, Tim.
See you later.